Welcome to Dark Side of BEASTwriter. I'm your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we are going to be discussing breaking down the matchup between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Chargers, mainly talking about the Raiders wide receivers and tight ends versus that secondary. Now, before we go ahead and get started, I just want to say mahalo to each and every one of you for subscribing to the channel. Just be sure to turn on and flip on the bell notifications on YouTube so you get notified when I go live or when I upload content. So every week, Monday through Friday, I'll do a Pick Six segment, Q&A live stream, answering your questions in regards to whatever it is you want to talk about on all things silver and black. So we're not going to waste any more time, and we're just going to specifically dive right into what's going on when it comes to Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. I do want to point out that there are some transactions that were made, and for those who want to play catch up, let's put the banner here, in regards to the practice squad, right? So there were some transactions that were made in regards to the practice squad yesterday and today. For those who aren't familiar with how the practice squad works because of COVID and all those other things and interchangeable parts, and it basically comes down to a 16-player practice squad. And nowadays, you can have a vested veteran. I'm not going to go in details about what a vested veteran is because it's based on accrued seasons. They're going to ask what's an accrued season. Just know that there's 16 players on the team when it comes to the practice squad, and vested veterans, you can have a certain number. I believe the number is 5 or 6. I got to double check on that on the roster. So again, there's a lot of different parameters into why a team puts a claim on a player, whether he's waived or released. And again, it's based on accrued season. So just to go ahead and give you a rundown on what's going on yesterday, Kyle Peko, the nose tackle, defensive tackle, who's been shining in my grading system. When I run preseason grades on film, when I watch him practice, this guy was a surprise cut in my 53-man roster. He returns to the team's practice squad. GM Dave Ziegler did a very nice job in going ahead and adding him back onto the 16-team practice squad because 16-player team practice squad. Say that 5 times fast. And it was a really smart move by him because at the end of the day, Kyle Peko, to me, was one of those players you shouldn't have let go in the first place. And I really believe that. And I believe that because the film never lies. And I caught up with Kyle Peko today in the Raiders locker room. For those who don't know, if you guys haven't saw the YouTube videos that I posted up earlier in the day, that was the first time that I've been told that we've been able to go into that locker room at Raiders headquarters. We've been in the locker room at Allegiant Stadium, but not specifically at Raiders headquarters. That was the first time for all of us. So I've been told. So with that being said, it was really nice. A little background regarding the Raiders locker room. And as soon as I stepped foot, and it kind of brought back Levi Stadium vibes because I like to compare, right? And so when I compare the 49ers to the Raiders, people say, don't compare. No, I'm going to compare. That's just how I do it. So I walk in, I'm like, man, this is dope. Like it says always a Raider, once a Raider, always a Raider, excuse me. So that's as soon as you exit the building or the locker room. And so that would be the beginning as you walk in through the double doors. On the backside wall, it says commitment to excellence. So you have the Al Davis mentality alive and well in all places. And so I think that's really cool because now you're bringing the past with the present and kind of meshing it into today. So it's really cool to see how that all played a role. And obviously it was all decked out in silver and black, and you wouldn't want it any other way. I mean, it wouldn't be like white or anything. Well, there's some white in there because silver, black, white. It's all the Raiders colors, but you wouldn't see a random color like a blue or something like that. Anyways, so Kyle Peko, getting back to Kyle Peko, he was added to the practice squad, and the reason for that was because they released Tyler Lancaster. He's a 3-4 base defensive guy. I talked about this earlier and how they're bringing in 3-4 base guys, and now Coach Graham's like, no, we're not a 3-4 base. We're not a 4-3. We can run multiple. I get it, but you're a 3-4 base defense. And there's a lot of 2-gap space eaters on your defensive line, so therefore I'm going to call it how I see it because I watched it in great film. Anyways, Tyler Lancaster comes from the Green Bay Packers as an undrafted free agent back in 2018 who runs a 34 base defense. He, out of Northwestern, if I'm not mistaken, he was let go. And so he was on IR. And so when that happens, that opened up a space. And I said during the practice, well, he didn't take up space because he was on IR, but there was one space open. It was given to Kyle Peko. Look, I talk about this all the time. You can name players off a roster all we want, but in order to understand how good a player really is, you have to cover the other 31 other NFL teams. I'm sorry. It takes a lot of time. Like, for instance, I didn't even get a workout in yet today. But Why? Because I was watching and grading film. This is what I do. Like, in order for me to talk and come on this live stream, I have to do the legwork so I know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm not just going to be blowing smoke up your butt and be like, oh, yeah, well, this part. No, like, what? No, dude, like, do the legwork. Other people are going to call you out if you don't know your crap. So just keep it 100. Anyways, Tyler Lancaster's not very good. Go check out the Beast receipts in practice. He's a one-trick pony. Nothing more than a 2-gas space shooter, which is kind of relevant to a 34 base guy because you don't expect a 34 base guy to get double-digit stats. Unless you're Justin Smith, but, that's a different story. Unless you're the Cowboy, it's a different story. But all in all, Tyler Lancaster just wasn't it. And Kyle Pickle was a smarter play, even though he wasn't on the team initially in the 53. So that being said, let's double down on those gains today and talk about the transactions that happened with the practice squad today. So defensive end, outside linebacker, tweener, as I like to call it, because that's the scouting term that was used before the term edge was created. And Zach Van Velkenberg was waived today. So when he's waived, that means he doesn't have enough accrued NFL season. So he hits the waiver wire. And the other 31 other NFL teams can put a claim on that player. Now, it's based on there's a lot of different parameters that go into it, okay? But basically, when you put a claim on a player, there is a rotation, and it's kind of like, it's not a first dibs type of deal. There's like a draft, kind of like a draft. I like to say layman terms draft order, even though it's technically not a draft order. But you put a claim on a player, and based on the order of the waiver wire, claim order is going to be determined where he goes if he gets claimed. If not, if no one wants his butt, like if no one wants him, then he can revert and be a free agent. So that's how that works. All right. But he was waived today. Offensive tackle, offensive guard, Fiddly Gurman, who they just picked up number 73 last week. And I was like, who's number 73 in practice? I put some videos. Who's number 73? And people was like, oh, man, that's Joe Haig. I was like, I don't think that's Joe Haig. But anyways, it wasn't Joe Haig. It was Fiddly Gurman. He is now sent on IR, which opened up a practice squad roster spot. That means that 2 practice squad roster spots will open out of 16. 14 out of 16 are now filled because Kyle Pickle was just signed. You keeping up? All right. So who do they bring back? Keelan Cole, another guy who I thought would make the 53-man roster. So even though these guys didn't make the initial 53, they're on the team's practice squad. So I'm not looking too bad, even though I hit what was my hit rate? 89%. 89% on the 53. I'm predicting the 50-man roster, man. Check out the Beast receipt. I believe it's 89%, something like that. I'm very upset. It should be in the 90s, but whatever. And then they also signed Alex Bars, right? Offensive tackle, offensive guard, call it what you want. Alex Bars is back on the team. So that's the transactions. I want to give you guys a lowdown on that because, that's what we do here. People getting off work. People are in the car, stuck in traffic. It's really cool. I guess you guys listen to me while you're on the road. You guys can't watch me, but then you guys have your phone on, listen to me. I got some comments on that. That's pretty cool. You guys listen to me as like a legit podcast, even though I'm not on Spotify or anything like that. Rocker Corey says, let's go. Kevin Lurker says, good evening, Beast or B. Good evening, Kevin. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, man. Flinko versus Flinko. That you're always on here, and I think I'm saying that right. Flinko. He says, your locker room interviews were awesome, man. Great content. Thank you so much, and I appreciate it. The thing that I like to do before we go ahead and talk about, obviously, the Raiders and Chargers and the matchups and the breakdowns and target share and all this, is I go in with a game plan. Just like coach goes on with a game plan. You don't go and do it blind. You don't go into – look, if you fail to prepare, you're already at a disadvantage. So that's what I do. I have like a formula that I use, a blueprint that I use. I actually do legwork. I actually watch film. So I know when I have to interview and get scheduled to interview Coach McDaniels, when I get scheduled to interview some of these players who we don't know at the time, but then once they announce the players, it's like, oh, okay, I already know what I'm going to ask these players, right? So you already have an idea of which questions to ask because you're watching film. Or in my case, I'm watching film. And so they're doing the same thing. The players are doing the exact same thing I'm doing, just, at a higher level, obviously, because they're being taught at a professional level, where me, I'm just an amateur kid. Like, I'm not even a kid, but amateur guy just trying to, do it. I'm joking. I've been taught how to watch film, but to be honest with you, it's on a different level, right? Because they're teaching rules of engagement. They're teaching what to look for on down and distance and personnel inform. And I do the same thing because it's called reading your keys. If you don't know how to read the keys, and look, if you watch enough game film, you can pick up on tendencies. In fact, you can go, and I talked to my guy Randy Miller about this, former GM of the Saints and you guys Dolphins and so forth. We can talk about the rules of engagement, but you can talk about body language. I mean, we live here in Vegas. I used to play poker. All right. Professionally. I'm not a professional anymore because I suck. So was I really a professional? No, I'm joking. I was never a professional poker player, but I did play with friends, and you can pick up on tells, right? So you know the movie Rounders, right? And so if you lean back, that shows what? They obviously have a strong hand. Or if you lean forward, that means you're kind of like eager, right? Or if you start shaking your leg, that means you're nervous, right? Or if there's little ticks, right? When you ask, you can definitely pick up on little things from different players or coaches when you ask them questions, right? And so same thing applies on the field. Like if you watch game film and they're throwing signs like this on the sideline, and then you watch the play on all 22, you're going to figure out, hey, look, this means a tackle and stunt. Or if you tap your head, if a middle linebacker taps your head, he relates it to the boundary cornerback. The boundary cornerback relates it to the free safety. You can pick up on certain tells if you watch enough film. Now you can do the reverse psychology because obviously coaches pick up on that. People like me pick up on that. So then they're like, okay, well, let's do the same sign, but then switch it around. Like this means the opposite of what we did last week. So, I mean, you have to figure out the things. That's why you talk about reading keys. That's why Alex Highsmith with Pittsburgh Steelers, he talks about his strong get off, right? What did he talk about last year in press conferences? Reading your keys. Why am I talking about random players? Because again, in order to cover the team I'm talking about, which is the silver and black, the Las Vegas Raiders, I need to know the dynamics of the other 31. Because when you compare a guy like Alex Highsmith, a third round pick, Alex Highsmith, who replaced Bud Dupree, who tore his ACL. And the reason why they kept Alex Highsmith over Bud Dupree, well, one, because they had to re-sign TJ Watt. But another reason is because Alex Highsmith was the future and the GM Kevin Colbert, or then GM Kevin Colbert. So how do I know that? Because I graded Alex Highsmith, graded every single snap. So again, I watched the film. When it pertains to the silver and black, the Las Vegas Raiders, I see the same kind of skill set in Alex Highsmith that I see in Tashawn Bauer. See where I'm going with this? Like, in order for me to have an analysis, I have to grade the snap. I can't be going to the box score because if you look at the box score from Tashawn Bauer to Alex Highsmith, it ain't going to match up. But the similar skill set that you see and the parameters that I'm looking for when I run my grades, they mirror match each other. Get it? Mirror match? Like mirror matching downfield with the boundary quarterback? Okay. Anyways, I love talking football. So we're not going to waste any more time. We're just going to keep on going and keep this thing hot here in the dark side of BEASTwriter. Let's go ahead and talk about the news, notes, and quotes from today. All right. So what exactly happened today? Well, I went in with the game plan and I asked Coach McDaniels, hey, man, hey, coach, like Derwin James can do a lot of pre-snap disguising, right? He's allowed the freedom, or what we like to call giving the green light, right? A lot of times coaches, if they don't trust you, they're not going to give you the green light to kind of roam near the line of scrimmage and then seal backside into a cover one high safety look because they don't think that you have the range, or they think you're going to come out too late, or whatever the case may be. But the rules of engagement will apply with Brandon Staley because he is that smart. Brandon Staley is a very good defensive coach. You saw it with the Rams, and now we see it with the Chargers. And when I ran Chargers game grades last year, I ran game grades on Joey Bosa, just ran it, showed you guys the film and what I look for and all these different things yesterday. But when it comes down to it, Brandon Staley does a very good job at scheming things up on the back, especially on the back end. So Coach McDaniels talked about it. Say, hey, coach, like Derwin James does a lot of different things. You can line up the slot, can line up the boundary, can line up a single high, can come up as a traditional box safety. So he's like, man, like, yeah, Ronaldo Hill and Brandon Staley do a very nice job at disguising pre-snap play from post-snap looks, right? And so what does that mean? Well, what does that entail is if you're, again, using the psychology of how football works, because as we know, and I keep on saying it, football as it is physical, as it is mental, you really need to understand the thought process that goes on any given down. And how do you pick up on different things? Well, you have to read formations. You have to read down and distance. You have to know exactly what keys to look for. Like if it's a trips formation to the left and then see Keenan Allen going across, doing some window shopping on the orbit motion or some crap, I don't know. Let's just say, for example, right? But if he does an orbit motion, I'm going to take notes. Okay, orbit motion, third down. Okay, what down and distance was that? Okay, so that's 3rd and 7. Okay, so what was the rules of engagement of why he did that? Was it to kind of balance out the strong side from the weak side formation? So not a 2x2 set. So you have to look at all these things. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of stuff that goes on before the snap is even drawn up. Psychologically, you have to know what's going on. And let me tell you something. Anybody who thinks it's easy, it's not. It's not easy. You go into a play, think, oh, yeah, it's just hike the ball and just get the ball. No, it's not how it works, bro. Like, no. I don't understand how people think It's so easy. If it's easy, then you should go on the field and do it yourself because it's not easy. You get paid millions of dollars to do a job, and let's see how you do it, how well of a job you do. It's not easy. It's not easy. Not easy. All right. Rucker says, who wins, Raiders or Chargers? I'm going to go ahead and talk about that in later live stream. So that's a teaser, right? Because I like to formulate brick by brick exactly my analysis. So when game time comes around on my 4th and Goal podcast, you like that 4th and Goal podcast? I will break that down for you. I will also give you the over-under. I will also give you 3 top fantasy football players for all you fantasy owners out there. You guys know how I love to do that. And I like to call myself out when I get it wrong, which is not very often, but it happens. But if I can hit on 2 or 3 all day, every day, then we're looking strong. And obviously, on top of that, I will tell you exactly how many yards a player will have down to how many catches you have. Like, it won't be like a generic number like 10. It'll be like 7 catches for 83 yards. Like, I'm not joking. You'll see me do it. Why not 85? Well, because I have an algorithm for that. But there's different things that go on to it, man. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be freaking legit. Like, Niner fans know this. Raiders fans, some of you guys already follow me before this, know this, that for fantasy football, just saying, you guys love the fantasy football stuff angle. I don't. I'm joking. I love fantasy football, but I don't play fantasy football. Not anymore. I'm too busy covering and giving you guys the inside scoop so you guys can do well in your fantasy football leagues. But let's go ahead and talk about what's going on with the wide receivers and tight ends. I think they're going to see, when it comes specifically for the Raiders, a lot of chips. And you see this, again, around the landscape of around the NFL. You see a lot of offensive coordinators. Would it be Josh McDaniels, Andy Reid, even within the division, right? We can talk about all the coaches within the division. All right. Or even outside the division. It doesn't even matter. Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. I mean, this goes on and on and on. Todd Bowles. What they like to do in slowing down edge presence is spreading you out horizontally as opposed to vertically. And when you spread them out horizontally, how do you do that? Well, there's a lot of different things you can do. You can run outside zone, even if they're not outside zone run team. You can run counters. You can run traps on the inside zone. So there's a lot of different things you can do based on formation and looks. The problem, the good thing with having a 12 personnel set, which I think they're going to run 12 personnel, which is 1 back, 2 tight end sets, is these offensive tackles of the Raiders, whether it be Colton Miller on the left side or whether it be Jermaine Illuminor on the right side, they're going to need a chip from Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, because those guys are going to be screaming off the edge, pinning their ears back, because that's what they do best. Again, a good coach will always put you in what? The best position to make plays. Are you going to ask Joey Bosa to kind of throttle down and stop the run, even though fundamentally you're taught to do that? Or would you live and die with a 1 out of 5 pass rush win rate and getting a sack, which is a 20% conversion rate, over maybe giving up 3.5 to maybe 4 yards on the outside zone run on 2 out of the 3 plays? I mean, you got to do the math on that. And then how does that equate into the long game when you talk about instant gratification versus long-term gains throughout the course of the time of possession throughout the entire ball game? How does that play a role? And exactly, you have to predict and kind of think, okay, when that happens, what quarter is that going to be in and how many times out of the quarter is that going to be? So to me, I think if you're Ronaldo Hill, you're going to be like, hey, man, just pin your ears back and get vertical. Whatever happens, happens. That bodes well for the Las Vegas Raiders, because if that happens, you can run bubble screens. You can run a lot of quick hitch routes, because now you're counting on the 5 to 7 yard quick hitches that we talked about here on my practice videos earlier today that I seen them practicing. And if you guys want to know how to really run a crisp 5 to 7 yard hitch, you got to attack that outside shoulder based on the pre-snap leverage. You got to make sure your eyes are downfield, because you got to sell that vertical route. If your eyes come down, you're reading a key, not pre to post snap, but this is in adjustment snap now. Now we're talking in adjustment, because if I'm a cornerback and I'm playing press coverage and I see you running and attacking my outside shoulder from the numbers to the boundary, even though I have help over the top, would it be a cover 2 or cover 3 shell? Probably be a cover 2, because Staley likes to run a lot of split high coverages, right? So that'll be from the hashes to the numbers or to the boundary. I'm looking at this and being like, okay, and you put in that wide receiver, let's say if you're, well, Hunter Renfrow doesn't do this because he's a top 5 route runner. Just same with Devontae Adams. But let's say Joe Schmo, let's call slot wide receiver Joe Schmo, runs a route and his eyes are down. He's looking at the ground. Well, that just tells me one thing. that tells me that he's going to come back on that route. Would it be a comeback or a hitch? So I'm going to squat on that route and jump that route and take it to make a house call. You know who does that really well? Marcus Peters. But again, if you get bit on a double move, it's all for naught, because if you bite on that double move and you're smart enough to know that, hey, look, this is what this guy does when the eyes are down. He just squats automatically. Then this is what Hunter Renfrow does. This is what makes him very good. He's like, okay, I'm going to use reverse psychology against you, just like in poker. I'm going to have my eyes down so you think I'm running a comeback, and then I'm not going to run a double move. I'm going to run this freaking a double move, come back, and then go back up vertical. And then from there, it's a lot of real estate to work with, because that free safety has to pick and choose his spots if he's going to cover the down the seams with Darren Waller over there, or if he's going to cover outside all that ground and cover Hunter Renfrow. There's a lot of different things you can do with this. So it's nothing like, oh, it's a secret. No, this has all been known. I'm just laying it out there because everybody knows it. Or if you don't know it, it's like common sense if you're watching a film. Like, same thing applies in college. Like, there's nothing like, this is fundamentals and technique. Like, you got to learn your keys. And like, if you don't understand film study, you're not going to understand exactly what I'm talking about. This is probably like so like out there for some of you guys, but I want to give you guys some input so you guys can do your own due diligence. But hey, look, what the heck is Beast talking about? And then you ask somebody and be like, oh yeah, it kind of makes sense. Or you can ask somebody about, oh no, this guy is full of crap. Either way, I'm letting you guys know these are things that you should look for. But when you talk about the wide receivers and the tight ends, they're going to be doing a lot of chipping, running a lot of shorter routes, because again, how do you stop that pass rush? Is you want to get open on the 3-5 step drops. The 7-step drops, I don't know how many times you can really run the 7-step drop with that offensive line, especially with those edge rushers screaming off the edge like that. I'm just saying. And let's not forget that defensive line, too much talk has been given to Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, and deservedly so. If you're going into the game plan, yes, you have to neutralize those guys some way, shape, or form schematically. But it all starts up front. What I mean by that is look at the interior of that defensive line. They have Sebastian Joseph Day, who comes from the LA Rams, who reunites himself with the Chargers from Brandon Staley days. Same things apply with Ronaldo Hill during their time with the Denver Broncos, right? When Ronaldo Hill was the defensive backs coach. And obviously I talked about it yesterday where Brandon Staley was the outside linebackers coach. So they kind of go hand in hand. And then you also wonder why they bring familiar faces. Well, they understand the scheme, bro. Like there's no drop off in production from a schematic standpoint when we talk about film study, because they already know what to do. It's like it's like second nature to them. It's like muscle memory plays a role. Just like when I work out, like I don't have to second guess, oh, how do I do this movement? It's like, no, I've been doing it for thousands of times. I know what I'm doing. I know what the hell I'm doing, right? So with that being said, this is my friend Chris Cardima. Chris Cardima is my friend from the Bay. I used to personal train this kid. By the way, he did a really good job when I was personal training him. And I call him a kid, even though he's older than me. But he said, I expect more than 90% out of you for my predictions. You know what? That's the expectation you guys always wanted, because you guys are expecting that, because that's how I am with the Niners, or in Steelers. I'm like 93, 94% on my predictions and analysis. And that's just when the draft rolls around, I'm pretty on point with that too. Because again, I cover all 32, watch game film, college game film, great game film, great college players. So when they come out, it's like the legwork's already done. Like there's no legwork needed to be made, because I'm not, oh my gosh, who is this player? It's like, nah, man, like I already have an idea of who this player is. And that goes back to scouting evaluations and so forth. But at the end of the day, I just love talking football. So the news, notes, and quotes, talk to Coach McDaniels about the secondary and what Derwin James brings to the table. But also you guys have to remember outside of that, right? So wide receivers, the Raiders wide receivers with the Chargers secondary, there's a lot of different factors that go into this, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at exactly the Chargers secondary. Well, they brought in guys like J.C. Jackson, signed into a 5-year, $82.5 million contract with $16.5 million APY, making him the ninth highest paid boundary quarterback in the entire NFL. And then they're double down on those games. You guys remember they drafted Asante Samuel Jr. last year. And in real time, when I was doing the Q&A live stream, as the draft was unfolding, I wanted the Niners to select who? Asante Samuel Jr. What did they do? Trade down with the Las Vegas Raiders for who? Aaron Bakes. And I said, Aaron Bakes is going to be a healthy scratch. He's not tailor-made for that zone blocking scheme. He's more of a power-based guy. And then what did Niner fans leave their comments? And by the way, those Niner fans are all ghosts now because, you know, I'm right. I said, but let's circle back to this because the Beast receipt is going to check out more times than not. And they're like, oh, no, PFF grades Aaron Banks at Notre Dame as a best pass blocker. I'm like, okay, we'll see how that goes. He's going to be a healthy scratch. He was a healthy scratch. I'm not saying Aaron Banks is bad. I'm just saying he's bad for what they're trying to do. Let's just keep it 100. Because if he was good, he wouldn't be riding the pine for 2 years, for what, last year? And this year he's inserted now. But look at that line. I don't understand how, correct me if I'm wrong, but that Niners actually, I'm not wrong. That Niners offensive line is not very strong. And if everything starts up front, how are people picking the Niners to win the NFC West? Is the Seahawks that bad? Yes, the Seahawks are pretty bad. I'll give you that. The Seahawks are pretty bad. They don't have Carlos Dunlap there. The Legion of Boom is not what it was in years past. The offensive line is in shambles. But you take a look at the Arizona Cardinals, right? They still have Kyler Murray, but this, okay, joking with the Kyler Murray jokes. Okay, I get it. The film study, how I was like, how has he watched 4 hours of film? Okay, so that's another one. But the Rams, why are people sleeping on the Rams, man? The Rams are still the Super Bowl champs. Yes, they don't have OBJ, but they pick up Allen Robinson, a nice possession receiver, and they have a lot of moving parts there. Even though they lose guys like Sebastian Joseph Day, Troy Reader to the Los Angeles Chargers, guys like these, they're still the Rams. They're still the defending champs. Until someone knocks them off, they're king of the hill in the NFC West. Now, I'm not saying that the Niners are not going to be there. They certainly will be, because Kyle Shanahan does a very good job at scheming things up, hiding his players' weaknesses along the offensive line. But let's be honest about that. It all starts up front, and I can't tell you that I am extremely happy with the what's the word? With the way things are going with that offensive line. Egalitarian says, Ryan, do you think Dave Ziegler should kick the tires on Davian Nixon? I mean, I've been asked this question before. I think they're fine at defensive tackle. Like I said, defensive tackle. Along the line, I think they're totally fine. I don't think that listen. The panic button is the panic button, right? And so when you look at like a defensive tackle, I think he came out of Iowa, right? Let me make sure this guy came out of. Is it the Davian Nixon? Isn't this guy come out of Iowa? Let me double check, because I want to talk about and be like, oh, what the hell are you talking about, bro? Yeah, the defensive tackle out of Iowa, right? Is that who you're talking about? No, I look, I like Davian Nixon, but I don't think they should pick him up, because I like Kyle Pecco. I like Andrew Billings. I like the starting defensive line, excuse me, that they have right now. So they're pretty much set. Now, people can go and say, oh, the defensive line is not that good. Well, they have Bilal Nichols, 2-year, $11 million, right? And when you compare that to the rest of the league, that's a freaking one of the most underrated signings in the entire NFL. I am telling you, if this guy stays healthy, you guys will be happy. You guys will be extremely happy, Raider Nation. I'm telling you, this guy is a top 15 to 20 interior defensive lineman when it comes to stuffing the run. He's up there with DJ Jones. Now, DJ Jones is a little bit better. Don't get it twisted, because he can add a little bit more pressure as an interior pocket pusher. But again, when I cover all grades on all teams and pick, my spots, obviously, I don't cover every single player on every single team, because that'd be impossible. I'm not a one-man PFF. I'm just a one-man DOB. So with that being said, I do have these grades, and I really rely on these grades when formulating my analysis. I like Bilal Nichols. I like Kyle Pecco. I like Neil Farrell for a rookie. I like Matthew Butler even for a rookie. I think the core foundational group is doing just fine. Now, the downfall is there's no household name. The parameters of this whole entire circus that we're talking about comes down to Ndamukong Suh, because there's been reports that Ndamukong Suh wants to play for the Silver and Black. We have the cap space. How come we're not making a play for Ndamukong Suh? Well, maybe they're not making a play for Ndamukong Suh because maybe they're waiting for an offensive lineman to come up and be available, and maybe they want to solidify and allocate some funds to the offensive line. Or maybe they want to get a guy like Ndamukong Suh, but the financial parameters of making that deal just aren't there yet. So you gotta have to look at everything. It's not just as simple as this is how much cap space we have. This is how much we have to spend. So let's go out and spend it on this guy. No, it's not as simple as that. There's a lot of different layers of the onion to when we get to the core, when we talk about these certain players. I hope this makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, I apologize, but I'm just trying to put it in simplest terms. There's a lot of layers to this. All right, but we're talking about the secondary right now. Asante Samuel Jr., I like this guy. Coach McDaniels went on record today saying he's twitchy. He has wide receiver skill set, reminds him of his dad, Asante Samuel Jr., who obviously played for the New England Patriots. I believe he was number 22 as well. I think he played alongside, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm doing this blind, okay? Like, I have no idea, but I used to watch the New England Patriots a lot. In fact, I'll go on record and say I liked the New England Patriots growing up, even before Belichick got there. I liked them when they had Bill Parcells. I did. I liked Terry Glenn. I liked guys like, well, Teddy Bruschi was on the team, but who is that freaking? Oh, gosh, now I'm drawing a blank. Oh yeah, did you like the Drew Bledsoe? Right? They had who's that tight end? Gosh, number 82. Ben Coates. They had Ben Coates. Obviously, Curtis, my favorite, Martin. Before he went to the New York Jets, I think that was like 97 or 98 or something like that. Might have been 96. I think it was like 97, 98. Because I remember in 1998, that was the game that Garrison Hurst ran for that 96-yard touchdown. I was sitting front row on the 20-yard line. Dave Fiore out of Hofstra. The Hofstra program no longer exists. Terrell Owens sprung Garrison Hurst for that 96-yard touchdown run in overtime. And that was, by the way, that's when I became a huge fan of a guy by the name of Wayne Corbett. You guys don't know who Wayne Corbett? I think Wayne Corbett also came out of Hofstra, did he not? So talk about Hofstra products in the program that no longer exists. Sorry, Giovanni Carmazzi fans. Lance Schulters, Hofstra product. Zach Bronson, McNeese State. How do I know this? I don't know, man. Anyways, you guys are probably wondering who the heck is he talking about? Anyways, these are all players from my time growing up. But getting back to it, yeah, it's one of those things where when you talk about these different players and who they should target or who they should go after, I really like the players that they have at hand. Does that make sense? Now, I'm not saying Dominican Sue is not going to help the team. He certainly will make them instant plug-and-play starter. Like, that's not a question. I'm not saying Dominican Sue cannot help the Raiders win a Super Bowl, because the Super Bowl window is obviously now when you trade for Davante Adams and do all these different moving parts, signing Chandler Jones and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's like this. It's like, what is the window of opportunity? How much financially can we get out of this player? And logically, exactly, when you make that type of a roster move, what does that set up for a 2 to 3 year outlook? Because you have to account for that 2 to 3 year outlook. And then you look at the draft capital coming in, that you're acquiring draft capital. If you want to maneuver in the draft, and then you have your scouting department, and then you have these guys with silver helmets, if you will, Raider helmets on, and you say, okay, well, based on how the mock drafts line up and based on what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, this is how my board lines up. And then you go into the draft process and saying, okay, logically, what are the odds that we can target these players on our board, right? So you have your vertical board, you have your horizontal board. Some people have what's called a value board. And then also on top of that, you have your big board, right? So technically a big board and a vertical board could be the same thing, but there could be subtle differences between the two. How do I know this? I don't know. You tell me. No, you pick up on certain things, right? And there's some leaks online that you can kind of figure out. Like during the early 90s when internet wasn't really that big, like people would be posting stuff. I'm like, what is that? Like, remember AOL and all these chat rooms? And then like, gosh, remember AOL days? Jeez Louise. Bringing back memories of the dial-up. DSL. Remember the DSL stuff? The DSL, yeah. And then like you're waiting. It's like, okay, dude, the first round just went by. Thanks. And then people would like go in the chat rooms. Remember the chat rooms on AOL? Do you guys miss those chat rooms? I know nowadays it's Reddit, but I used to love the AOL chat rooms growing up. I don't know why I'm talking about it. It just brings back memories, because maybe this is my AOL chat room right now. The YouTube thing. It's just more face to face. I like it. But yeah, a lot of different things that we can talk about when it comes to the Chargers. Obviously, J.C. Jackson, Asante Samuel Jr., Bryce Callahan, a nickelback coming from the Denver Broncos days within the AFC West. And if you look at the dynamics of the other 31, again, in order to formulate this analysis, you see it with the Las Vegas Raiders. They got rid of Darius Phillips, who I thought was going to make the team a good punt returner, kick returner, whatever the case may be. Can also play slot, the boundary. He was released, and who does he play for now? You guys do the math and look it up. If I'm not mistaken, it's the Denver Broncos. And then you have a guy from the Denver Broncos and Bryce Callahan just going over to the LA Chargers, right? And so what does that leave a position in nickelback with the Denver Broncos? And who slides into the nickelback position with the Denver Broncos? And K'Wan Williams, who comes from who? San Francisco 49ers. So you can kind of see the dynamics when you kind of say this game of musical chairs. And I talked to Hunter Renfrow and Davante Adams about it. Not Davante Adams. I get that Davante Adams tomorrow. Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller about it. And the one thing they talked about these guys in that secondary is they're very versatile, right? They're very good. Renfrow talked about it with me in the locker room. Say, hey, man, Bryce Callahan's a really good player. Went up against him in Denver. Now he has to face him twice a year. Still staying within the AFC West or the AFC Best. And they just like being multiple. They can do a lot of stuff. Just like on offense with Kyle Shanahan, who does a lot of window shopping and window dressing and likes to, like, I don't know, do jumping jacks in between sets and stuff, in between the snap count, and has his linemen do all kinds of weird crap. I'm joking, but you guys get the picture. He does a very good job at freaking showing eye candy. It's like, okay, Deebo Samuel going across motion. Is it an orbit motion? No, it's a jet sweep. Oh, no, it's not a jet sweep. It's just an inside zone run to Kyle Juszczyk. Oh, man, where did that come from? Kyle Juszczyk only touches the ball 1 out of five games. Oh, wait, why is Kyle Juszczyk running a wheel route all of a sudden in the Super Bowl against Anthony Hitchens? Whoa, where did that come from? Which, by the way, Kyle Juszczyk in that Super Bowl went on ESPN radio, and that was my dark horse MVP. I said, you know what? If you guys want that dark horse MVP, pick Kyle Juszczyk. And then everyone's like, oh, man, that's a good one. Like, in hindsight, in real time, they were laughing at me. I said, no, man, watch. Kyle Juszczyk's going to be used against the Kansas City Chiefs. How do I know that? Because I run grades on the Kansas City Chiefs defense. Look, I don't know how it's going to play out. I just make an educated guess based on watching film. And more times than not, it plays out the way I envision it. Now, I could be wrong sometimes, but like when you're watching the film, you can pick up on. That's what I'm saying. That's just how it's done. Like, you have to watch film. All right. George says, guys, give a like. It's a free for the YouTube. Yes, thank you so much, George. Yes, give it a thumbs up. Also, if you also like the video and you'd like to donate to the channel, there's a super chat or super sticker opportunity for you guys to do that inside the live stream. It's a money icon. So if you guys like the work and would like to donate to yours truly, I do really appreciate it. So a little goes a very long way. So thank you so much for everyone for that donated yesterday and all my other past live streams. I really appreciate it. And again, just so you guys know how it works, all the YouTube live streams, super chats, and all the money that I make, it gets funneled back into you guys. And I'm not kidding. This is how I did with the Niners. So basically, what I'm doing is all the super chats. Obviously, I'm coming out with DOB swag. I'm running giveaways, and you guys know that Alzado already won the first giveaway here in the DOB with that alumni 2022 jersey. Jersey. Gosh, I'd call it a jersey towel. I don't know what else to call it, but that's kind of like where it's at right now. And so, like, when you look at these different things and what I'm trying to do is, like, I'm just trying to provide you the best content available. And so hopefully one day I can go on some of these road trips that I want to go on to. Obviously, I have to get credentialed and get credentialed for those and request credentials for those, because you have to request credentials for those. But if I had the opportunity to do it, all that money would just go toward me covering that specific game. So, like, for instance, the Chargers, if you guys want me at the Chargers game, you guys would be sending me super chat and super stickers. I would donate, I would allocate that funds for, rental car, for travel expenses, not for food. I mean, that's just kind of on me, but for the hotel, just for me to cover the game. And then everything at the end of the year, it'd be donated back into you. So any remaining balance, I'd be like, hey, dude, we have $1,000 saved up from DOB. You know what we're doing? We're giving season tickets for the Raiders games. And so, like, I buy tickets to the games and I just give them out. Just like what I do with the Niners. Those Niners season tickets, they're mine. And I donate them every single game. Like, I literally do that. And I still do that, even though I'm not covering the, because I feel like a lot of you Niner fans still follow me. And if I can give you guys something that you guys otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to have, I'm going to do that. So yeah, I like giving back to the community. I like giving back to my followers. And I'm just a loyal guy. Like, I like giving back because at the end of the day, you guys are the ones that put me in this position in the first place. All right. So that's how I'm always going to be. My mom, my dad raised me this way, and they watch my live streams and they say they're happy about that. All right. Stars and scheme aside, how does this team actually look in practice? Focused, confused, sharp, honest thoughts. I said it once and I said it again. This is the best looking coaching staff that I've been around, and I've been a lot, right? I've been not as much as like 30 guy with like 25 years of experience that, as you know, the NFL stands for not for long. So, but in my short time here, right, will it be 10, 12 years covering the NFL? In San Francisco, I had a lot of coaching staffs, but it's up there with Jim Harbaugh, and that's high praise. That is high praise. And I say that because it comes down to fundamentals. It comes down to understanding how to motivate players. It comes down to understanding the fine attention to detail and learning techniques. It comes down to when you go into the film room, what questions are you asking these positional coaches so that they understand what you're working on and what you need help on. So when you go into these practice and working these individual groups, we can kind of go in with a formula, right? With a game plan. So all these things are being taught. when I watch other coaching staffs, not every coaching staff has their good and has their bad, right? So I'm not going to be say, oh, this coaching staff is horrible. I'm never one to say that. But what I will say is, especially having, whether you play basketball, whether you play football, whether you play baseball, or any type of competitive sport, whether it be tennis, it could be individual sport or golf. It always comes down to one thing, and it comes down to fundamentals. If you're not fundamentally sound, you cannot improve on doing more advanced techniques or learning a more advanced type of a scheme, if you will, right? Or you can't do these different things if you don't know how to, like in basketball, if you don't know how to box out and go up for a rebound and get proper leveraging, and then knowing how to use your butt to seal off a freaking guy who's taller than you. Like, I'm only 5'5", so I had to learn the hard way, right? But at the end of the day, I still learned. I learned by getting big in the weight room. I'm joking. That was after high school. But in college, yeah, absolutely. So you have to learn how to win the leverage game. And I win by default because I'm only 5'4" or 5'5". So kudos to my parents for allowing me to win the leverage game by default. But getting down to it, no, fundamentals play a huge role. This coaching staff has this team dialed in. Everyone's buying in. That's a term that we frequently use. Buying into the process, to the program. Everyone is basically on the same page in terms from the top down. And this is away from the coaching staff. It's a 3-part process when you ask this question, right? It goes from management, the scouting department, the coaching staff, right, to the players, right? So there's a lot of different layers there, and everybody has to buy into the movement, because if you're not buying into the movement and you have 2 or 3 bad apples, it's going to sink that freaking barrel more times than not. So everyone has to buy in, and if you're not buying into the movement, then you might as well just not be here in the first place. And you don't see that here. You talk to everyone, they genuinely believe in the movement. They genuinely believe in what Coach McDaniels is preaching. And I think a lot of it has to do with coming from the Patriots. I mean, if the Patriots are the standard, which they are, and I don't care what you say, the Patriots are the standard. I don't give a dang what you guys say. Well, not you, but like what anyone says. They are the standard. And if you don't think that they're the standard, then just go to the Super Bowl rings. Oh, well, what about Spygate? What about look? All in all, the Patriots are the standard. I don't care what anyone says, the Patriots are the standard. And so if you're looking at it from that perspective, why not learn from the best? Coach McDaniels was the best. He's the one that was right there with Bill Belichick, right? So it goes Bill Belichick, and I would say Coach McDaniels. I mean, obviously. So he's up there, right? He's up there with Sean McVay. He's up there with Kyle Shanahan. He's up there with a lot of these. And I would know because I freaking covered Kyle Shanahan. He's one of the best as well. So when you look schematically at what they're trying to do and how they're trying to coach up these players, and I don't like to say coach up as much as teaching. When you're looking at it from a coaching perspective, you want to look at yourself as a teacher and the players as students, right? Because you're teaching them stuff, right? You're teaching them techniques. And so that's how I see this coaching staff being used. Now, here's the thing. It's like people say, oh, well, they should Super Bowl or bust. It's like, man, that's so unfair to say that the Raiders have to win the Super Bowl or bust. Like, I'm getting comments like that. And like, man, like, do you know how hard it is just to reach the Super Bowl? Do you know how hard it is even to make the playoffs, especially in the AFC West? It's not as easy as it looks. It's not as easy as it looks. Chris, my guy, says, great content again, Beast. Raider backfield. Will Jacobs take a bell cow role, or is this going to be a full-time share with Zamir Abdullah? That's a great question. I think it all comes down to sharing the workload. And if you look at the Patriot way, usually when they had James White, he was more of the receiving threat. I can see that being Amir Abdullah's game rather than Zamir or Zeus White. And I talked to Zeus today in the locker room when I asked him. Obviously, you guys know I asked him the question, describe his game in one word, and he's like dominant, right? And so talking about Zeus White, and I'm going to call him Zeus out of respect, and I keep on saying that because out of respect for me, I like being called Beast, right? Nicknames are earned, never self-given. So that's one of the things that I talk about. And when I approached Zeus today in the locker room, I was like, hey, man, like how's the season going? Whatever. He's ready, man. This guy's locked in and dialed in. I can tell you right now, Zeus White is going to surprise a lot of fantasy football owners because at the end of the day, running backs get hurt all the time. All the time. I'm not saying Josh Jacobs is going to get hurt. He is durable as they come. And he's going to go off for 15, 16, 1,700 scrimmage yards. Look, I was doing a lot of research on Josh Jacobs. Obviously, I covered him at Alabama, Roll Tide Roll. and I'm a huge Roll Tide Roll fan, but Josh Jacobs is going to outplay his way in Las Vegas. And I said it once and I say it twice. Look, there's no reason why they kept 5 running backs if they weren't looking toward the future. Now, Josh Jacobs is a present, but let's make no mistake about it. Zeus White and Britton Brown are the future. If they weren't the future, then you wouldn't have kept 5 running backs. That's just my thinking. And the Patriot way or the winning way or the Raider way is what you can find backs in later rounds. Now, that's not to say Josh Jacobs is not going to return. I certainly want him to return. I am rooting for Josh Jacobs to return. Let me just go ahead and say that. But it's not up to me. If it was up to me, he would be given that 5th-year option, which they declined. But it's not up to me. And there's no reason why they didn't draft Zeus White in the 4th round if they didn't think he was capable of taking over the workload. But as far as 2022 goes, yes, I think Josh Jacobs is going to run for 1,200 yards, rack up another 400, 500 receiving yards. Yes, if you're doing that math, that's 1,700 scrimmage yards and have around 14 touchdowns. Now, what's the stat line for Zeus White look like? I think Deuce is also going to have a good year. Kind of similar to when they had Kendall Hunter. You guys remember when the 49ers had Kendall Hunter and they also had a guy by the name of who? Who was back there as a running back? Frank Gore? Remember Frank Gore? Remember LaMichael James? And people were saying, oh man, like, how are you going to keep so many running backs? Well, maybe because they're all freaking good. And what happened, right? Frank Gore was the workhorse, but Kendall Hunter and obviously LaMichael James, who I thought, Michael James, my boy, but couldn't get it done at a Pac-12 or coming out of Oregon. I don't know why. Just wasn't given the opportunity. I liked LaMichael James. Anyway, Kendall Hunter at least stepped up, number 32. And so I can see the same thing happen with number 35, Zeus White. Now the question remains to be seen. If Josh Jacobs outplays his way in Las Vegas because he's going to be asking for big money because they declined that 5th-year option. So they're already looking ahead. If they wanted to leverage his rookie deal, they would have extended that 5th-year option, just like the 49ers extended DeForest Buckner that 5th-year option before trading him off. Because remember, you're on a rookie deal, right? If you're a first-round pick, you have a 4th-year deal with a club. It's called a CO, a club option for that 5th year, which you have to decide whether to make that deal 1 year prior for that year coming up on that contract. So there's a lot of different parameters here. So if you're looking at it from a GM standpoint, is it a smart move to go ahead and do that? Look, I'm not going to doubt GM Dave Ziegler because he's a power play GM. I think he's a top 5 GM, so I'm going to trust GM Dave Ziegler on that and say, yeah. I mean, if I had to roll the dice one way or the other, I can see why he did that. It makes sense. Now, would I do it? I don't make millions to make that decision. I'm just a guy on YouTube talking about it. I'm just a Raider beat writer. But no, you talk about a guy like Zamir and Abdullah, right? I talk about Zamir and Abdullah, Zamir White and Amir Abdullah. Amir Abdullah, to me, again, I say he's the most charismatic guy I've ever met in my 12 years covering the NFL. And I mean that truthfully. When I asked him the question about being a patient runner, being a one-cut back, not dancing in the backfield, because that drives coaches crazy, trust me, his methodical process in answering the question was it blew my mind. It really did. It blew my mind. And for me, it's almost like, damn, this guy's the real deal, man. I really like Amir Abdullah. I became a fan of his. Like, I'm a huge fan of Amir Abdullah. I'm a huge fan of Josh Jacobs. I'm also a huge fan of Zeus White. So all in all, at the end of the day, no one really knows how this is going to play out. All we know is if I had to take a guess, which is just an educated guess. Now watch Jacobs re-sign for a 3-4 year $1 million contract, or $3 to $4 million contract, 3 to 4 year, like, I don't know, whatever the top 5 running backs. Look, let's look at the top 5 running backs right now in the NFL and looks like the APY, and let's see how much he's going to be getting. So this is so you guys know exactly how this works, right? You have to look at exactly the landscape around the entire NFL. Look at Christian McCaffrey, right? Pops up number 1. He makes $16 million a year on average. Highest paid running back in the entire NFL. Alvin Kamara makes $15 million a year, which, by the way, I thought the Niners should draft in real time at number 34. Go check the base receipts. And people are like, oh, no, Alvin Kamara's not good. And I was like, dude, this guy's good. Out of Tennessee, watch. He's going to be good. He's going to be a Pro Bowl player. Watch. And then those people disappeared when I retweeted the receipt because their comments showed up. And then they're like, oh, no, this was right. Anyways, Zeke Elliott, he's making $15 million a year, APY, right? Dalvin Cook makes 12.6 million APY. Now you guys got to remember, there's a difference between a soft cap and a hard cap. So you want to look also at the guaranteed money. See, there's a lot of different parameters. I'm not going to go in detail because it's kind of too much, but I'm just going off APY to put it in layman terms for you guys. All right, 12.6 for Dalvin Cook. Derrick Henry is 12.5. And all these running backs are under the age of 30, obviously, because once you hit that 30 years of age, which is considered old, which is crazy because I'm really old if you were to take me into account. But they're all under the age of 30, right? A lot of these guys have been injured, right? Christian McCaffrey's been injured, and some of the Derrick Henry's also been injured. So Nick Chubb, here we go. Nick Chubb, $12.2 million, who, by the way, in my estimation is a top 5 running back coming out of Georgia. Georgia comes out with these factory backs, man. Garrison Hurst, Herschel Walker, you name it, dating back. And I mean, Georgia has some Zeus White. I mean, they have some dog. I mean, that's a running back factory school, if you ask me. Georgia, the Georgia Bulldogs. But yeah, Aaron Jones, 12 million. Joe Mixon, 12 million. Then there's a huge drop off from there because you have Saquon Barkley, 7.8 million, and then James Conner, 7 million. So you don't think Josh Jacobs, if he runs for 1,700 yards and puts up 14, 15 touchdowns, he's not going to ask for at least $12 million APY? And where's that money going to come from? Where's that money going to come from if he asks for $12 million? And that's just being nice. Like, he's going to want more money than Joe Mixon, who makes $12 million. He's going to want more than Aaron Jones that makes $12 million because at the end of the day, if I'm not mistaken, he's younger than both those guys. Joe Mixon's pretty young. He's 26, but Aaron Jones is 28. So when you're looking for that second contract and your 5th-year option's not picked up, you're going to want to eat, man. You're going to want a front-loaded deal with guaranteed money up front. You're not going to want to backload that contract because you're already banking on yourself, and you already did that in your first 4 years of production because the proof is in the pudding that there's a reason why you were a top 5 back in the entire NFL. Kevin Lurker, thank you so much for the super chat and super sticker. I appreciate the love. Mahalo, my guy. You keep if you guys want to donate like Kevin, please do so. You guys can do so by there's a money icon. I think it's a money icon. I don't even know how this works. There's a money icon on YouTube that you guys can donate to the channel as we do this live stream. Also, if you don't watch this live stream and like, let's say I'm working out later tonight and you guys still want to donate after watching the live stream or even during the stream, after it concludes, you guys can do that. There is a super thanks icon, which is like a heart icon. You guys can donate there and I'll get notified. And then you guys will be entered for exclusive giveaways that I do, which is going to be released every Aloha Family Friday. So aside from that, I like doing that just to give back to you guys because, again, without you guys, I wouldn't be where I am today. Daniel Kim says, outside of O-line protection, what do you think? What do you think is another key beating the Bolts? Maybe too many layers to the answer. Outside of O-line protection, that is a heavy loaded question, but there is a lot of different layers to that. But ultimately, I'm a firm believer in obviously stopping the run. If you can stop the run, stop Austin Eckler. Let me just go ahead and break this down for you guys. Austin Eckler makes people miss left and right and up and down. Austin Eckler is the real deal. If you want to see, and I'm going to go on record saying this, and this is no slight to, this is a challenge more for the Raiders defensive front seven than it is the defensive secondary. I want to see sound tackling. I think the tackling angles and taking proper angles and being a shoulder leverage tackling team, which I've always been showing you guys in my practice videos here on YouTube, is of the utmost importance. Because what Austin Eckler does is he takes away your momentum. And if you don't throttle down in the hunt and gather technique that I post on my videos, he's just going to attack that outside hip of your outside hip when you're supposed to be attacking the inside hip, and he's just going to swing it back against the grain. And you know who did a really good job at that? Charlie Garner with the Las Vegas Raiders, or then the Oakland Raiders. He did a really nice job. He had the vision to see the field in front of him, but then also have the peripheral vision like a point guard, like a Jason Kidd, where he's not throwing the no-look pass, but what he's doing is he sees the peripheral, and he knows if you're over-pursuing, all he has to do is take one step back, and you blow right by him, and then he's off to the races, right? Cutting against the grain. And then what happens on that side? Well, you have your wide receivers and your tight ends down blocking, and that is going to force what's called a flush play back to the backside contain, because what happens is by default, when you go against the grain, the leverage is already dictated toward for you, especially on the second and third levels. So that bolts in the Bolts favor, no pun intended, because Austin Eckler is really good at doing that. So I want to see the shoulder leverage tackling team, whether it be the second level backers, would be Darian Butler, Luke Masterson, Jayon Brown, Denzel, my man Perryman, Trayvon Merrick. I want them taking proper angles to the ball carrier, not allowing the cutback, attacking the near hip of the ball carrier, squeezing through the thighs, and wrap up form tackling. Now, again, there's certain levels of tackles that go into it. And again, this is fundamentals, right? So what I see in practice, I also break down on the YouTube videos. In the description box, you'll see a breakdown of explanation of what I'm seeing, because I'm also talking, right? I'm telling you guys visually what to look for before it even happens. You guys know, if you guys been following me over the course of training camp, you guys know how I do business. And if you guys don't know, I challenge you, and I would like for you guys to kind of get up to speed on that, and just go back to my videos dated. They're all dated from July 20th to today, and see what I had to say, because those practice videos throughout the year, that's what I'm going to be talking about, because this is what they teach in practice. And if you're not doing the things that they teach you and the coaches are teaching you in practice, you're not going to be playing on Sundays. That's just the bottom line. And you go to the game film and you're being like, okay, well, freaking A. That's the one thing I talked about, Amik Robinson. So after this concludes, I talked about Amik Robinson, in my one-on-one exclusive interview in the locker room. I said, man, one thing I liked about your game is you can tackle. You take a proper angle to the ball carrier. Where'd you learn that from? And I'm not going to spill the beans for you guys, because I want you guys to watch the video, because that helps out the algorithm and the page views. But go ahead and check that out, man. I'm telling you right now, when I go into each day, I go in with the game plan, because like I said, when it comes to a matchup, like going up against Austin Eckler or a Keenan Allen, who's a very savvy route runner, you have to know fundamentals on the back end. You have to know fundamentals in shoulder leverage tackling. You have to know how to hit them high or hit them low. And you also have to know, if you're going to go for a high profile tackle, which Darian Butler does a lot, but he misses in preseason play. That's not taking anything away from Darian Butler. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, I couldn't do it, but you get paid to do a job, and you got to bring down the ball carrier using proper angles. Everything in the game of football is about spacing and angles. It is. If you don't know your spacing, you're not going to know angles, because if you don't know how much space you have from right to left and how to leverage your splits based on down and distance, or knowing how to take a 45-degree angle attacking the near hip of the ball carrier, because you've never been taught that, that's you're not going to be playing on this squad. It's just common sense. It really is, because it's common sense, because I see it in practice. I see what they're teaching them. Like, that's the same thing as an offensive lineman, and they practiced going against tackle and stunts in what's called two-man game, right? And I talked about this again. You guys want to know what I'm talking about? Just go back to the videos, man. Go back to the practice videos. Just go back and see the description. But it's all in there. Special teams, same thing. Coach McMahon, same thing, right? You have to understand what I'm trying to tell you guys in practice, because at the end of the day, I'm your eyes and ears. So when I say something, I want you guys to formulate your own analysis, but at least you have visually, you'll know what to look for. You can be like, oh, Beast is right, or Beast is wrong. He's full of crap. Either way, you guys can formulate your own analysis from it. But more times than not, it checks out. The Beast receipts check out. I'm telling you right now, go to the practice videos after this concludes and watch the practice videos. If anything other than learning exactly what to watch for on game days, because I tell you what, Austin Eckler, he's going to make people miss. He's going to put people on skates. So you have to learn how to do what? Using the hunt and gather technique, which on the practice video that I posted from 7/20 on, July 20th on. They teach it all the time. Why? Because they know that within the division, you have guys like Javonte Williams, who's a freaking bowling pin of a guy coming out of UNC, sharing carries with Michael Carter. How do I know this? Because I graded college film, and I know what Javonte Williams brought to the table before he was drafted by the Denver Broncos, when I said the Atlanta Falcons should have drafted him instead of Jalen Mayfield. How do I know that? Because I run grades. I'm telling you right now, this is what you should look for in and expect from the YouTube channel here in the DOB. Is I'm going to provide you a fresh outlook on what to expect for the foreseeable future when it comes to pregame, draft analysis, predictions, and everything in between. Because at the end of the day, the film never lies. The film doesn't lie. If you're going to do something, or if I'm going to do something, I need to watch the film, bro. Like, I need to watch the film. And look, I may not get everything right when watching film, but at least I'm consistently right or consistently wrong. There's not like 5 million people grading the film. It's just one person and one person only, and that's me. But at the end of the day, the analysis checks out, and people are like, oh, how are you spot on? How are you doing this? Man, I watch a lot of film, 70, 80 hours of film. Not like Kyler Murray, which is like what, 2 hours of film a week. I can't believe he does that. I'm joking, but it like for him to have like a clause or something in his contract to say you have to watch 4 hours. What is that? Like 4 hours of film study for me is like watching, not joking. 4 hours of film study is like me watching. I don't know. I'm laughing because it like, what are you watching? Like one half of one game? Like for real, like if you're trying to, obviously he's watching defense and cover shells. So if he's trying to grade the 49ers, or not even grade, because he wouldn't be grading, he'd be looking for tells and keys and looking for that stuff on the back end based on the safety. But if you're really trying to disguise stuff, it'd be really difficult for me to think you can get everything done in 4 hours of game film prepping for an opponent. Like, I don't know. If I was prepping for an opponent, which I kind of do when I, run grades and stuff around the league, and so when I form my analysis, especially when it comes to the Chargers, which I already know how it's going to play out, because I ran so much grades on them last year. And of course, obviously personnel plays a role, but I mean, I graded Sebastian Joseph Day because I graded Aaron Donald and Von Miller and Troy Reader and all these other guys. Would be Taylor Rapp. I know he was injured a little bit, but you have to know these things off the top of your head. You just have to. You have to. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck and not be in mid-season form. I'm in mid-season form. There is no drop-off right now. There is no learning curve right now. I am in mid-season form. I'm ready to go. I am stoked. Guillermo Quintanilla says tackling is Hobbs' expertise. Yeah, I like Hobbs. Talked about it with him. We talked about spacing together when I talked to him of moving from boundary to slot and slot to boundary. He agreed with me. Takes proper angles. I like him. Orlando Padilla says, I went back to talk to my cousin who was talking trash about Raiders. Chiefs definitely was good. Defense was good. Chiefs defense was good last year. I'm not going to lie. Guillermo says, Vic Tafur predicted Harmon will eventually take over Abrams' starting position. Do you agree or disagree? Look, Vic Tafur knows more about the Raiders than I do. I'm not going to doubt the guy. He's a beast approved when it comes to analysis and predictions. Look, if Vic knows something, he says, I'm gonna buy it. I'm not gonna challenge it, because how would I know? I mean, this is my first year on the beat, man. I'm the new kid. I keep on telling people I'm the new kid on the block. I mean, yes, I know football, but I'm still the new kid on the block. If he says that Duron Harmon is going to eventually take over for Abrams' starting position, I can definitely see it happening, because in my DOB grades, Jonathan Abram is a horrible pass coverage defender. Now, that's not to say that he's not good. I'm not saying that. Look, it's hard to be a traditional box safety and then being able to be interchangeable parts playing on that third level, even in quarters coverage. What I am trying to say is that's just not his game. Gone are the days of the Steve Atwater during the Denver Broncos, or like I said yesterday, the Leroy Butlers of the Green Bay Packers. I mean, pick any guy. Pick any guy in years past where the rules weren't dictated and favoring not the offense, but it was neutralized. Nowadays, all the rules are dictated to favor, you can't touch a guy past 5 yards, or, the Mel Blount rule, right? Or George Atkinson, whatever you call it, right? The freaking Mike Haynes rule. I don't care. Lester Hayes rule. I don't care. You guys know what I'm talking about. You cannot touch a guy after 5 yards. The bump and run. Okay, cool. But then you can't hit him high. You can't hit him low. You can't hit him with the crown of the helmet. You can't hit him with the face mask of the helmet. You can't hit him with the shoulder. You can't lean in with the forearm or any other body part. It's like, okay, then what am I supposed to do? Kick the guy midair in the gut area? I don't know. I'm joking. But all the rules are favoring the offense these days. And it drives me nuts. It drives me crazy because I'm a defensive guy, number one. But number two, it just drives me crazy because now you're putting defensive players, especially guys like Jonathan Abram, in a compromised position because they're known to lay the wood. They're known to make you pay a price when you go across the middle. They're known to say, hey, look, if you're entering my territory, there is a price. You have to pay a toll, buddy. So that's what I got to say about that. But other than that, I just think that at the end of the day, look, if Vic says it's going to happen, I'm all in on Vic. I'm not going to doubt him. I'm going to go and roll with Vic. So I can see it happening, yes, because at the end of the day, Duron Harmon is a safer, cleaner prospect I shouldn't say prospect because prospect's more like a college prospect, but player in terms of being fundamentally sound on the back end. So that makes sense. All right, so that'll be it for this podcast. My computer's about to die. I'm only at 10% right now, so I got to head off on this live stream. But let me tell you something. If you guys like the video, give it a thumbs up. Drop your description below on what you liked about the video so I can post more content like this. If you didn't like the video, just give it a thumbs down. That's all good too, because one way or the other, it shows YouTube, hey, look, this guy's good or this guy's bad, but either way, it's going to help the algorithm because obviously you guys are engaging here in the Dark Side of BEASTwriter family. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I had a fun time on this Taco Tuesday. I'll be hopping back tomorrow on another Pick 6 weekly live stream Q&A as we keep things hot here in the DOB. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good day. Your boy has to hit the gym. BEASTwriter out.